Allah, it's vital for us not to take it off at any cost. The scarf is a symbol of a Muslim woman, which was prescribed by the laws of Allah and the Quran.
Since the attack, Amal and her family have left Glasgow and been rehoused in England. She's also given birth to a baby boy. Luckily, he was unharmed.
Do you think they attacked you because you're a Muslim?
I'm sure it's because my clothing seems strange because I wear the headscarf. I don't know really, maybe it's racism, but I think the main reason they attacked me was the scarf.
Amal's headscarf is the symbol of her identity as a Muslim woman. Is an attack like this simply racist, or is it motivated by religious hatred? Muslims aren't automatically protected by law because, unlike Sikhs and Jews, they weren't classified as a race under the 1976 Race Relations Act.
We have got a situation that even discrimination laws outlaw discrimination against Jewish community and the Sikh community, but the same protection is not given to Muslims. That actually gives a message out to the racist thugs outside that they could attack Muslims, and it is almost acceptable and legitimizing those actions.
Muslim problem.
Because we don't have religious discrimination laws here, by talking about Muslims, aren't you simply finding an easy way of targeting an Asian community, the largest Asian community, without being accused of or being prosecuted for being racist?
No, we're criticising people for smashing up their neighbours' homes because they're white, for rioting and for throwing petrol bombs at the police for hours on end, and as the Hindus and the Sikhs aren't doing that, we're not criticising them for that. It is a section of the Muslim community doing it. There clearly is an element, a way in which their Islamic beliefs are part of the problem and leading to do this. So it's only right to criticise them.
Where in the Quran does it give them orders to behave like that towards non-believers?
I don't expect it does, just as in the Bible. It doesn't tell people to have crusades and go massacring people of other religions. That's just the way that some people used to interpret the Bible, and some people similarly interpret the Quran.
2 million Muslims in this country. You've said that problems on the streets are caused by a minority of young people. The fact is that the vast majority of Muslims in this country are peaceable, hard-working, good neighbours.
I think it's right. The majority are peaceable, hard-working. There's a significant number within them who are most definitely not good neighbours to make Islam a problem. You come with me to Oldham, Burnley, Bradford, East London, talk to white people, and we'll ask them whether their Muslim neighbours are good neighbours, and plenty of them have found that they're not.
I don't honestly believe that all these people who voted for the BNP are racist or they're Islamophobic. What has happened, there are a number of issues. One is that there's social deprivation and social exclusion in all communities in these areas. I think what we need to do is to provide jobs and opportunities for the black and white people in these areas. We should regenerate communities, we should provide training and employment, and also concentrate on long-term on improving education.
But is anti-Muslim prejudice fueled by a long history of the West stereotyping Muslims? The journalist and critic Ziauddin Sada believes it is. He called up some examples.
Now, this is a bunch of mad mullahs with machine guns and great swords chasing a couple of pensioners down the road, one of whom had made the mistake of taking the satanic verses out, and her husband saying, "I told you to stick to Barbara Cartland." It's just a joke, isn't it?
what we see here is, first of all, the stereotypes developed during the Iranian Revolution of the mad Iranian mullah with his sword is now superimposed on the Rushdie affair stereotypes. If we look at cartoons like that, it actually affects our subconscious at the end of the day. If you portray Muslims as totally demonized, totally evil individual, then there's no possibility of dialogue. With the satanic verses, there was an intense opportunity for dialogue, and I think that opportunity did not take place.
But, you know, wouldn't it have been easier, though, to have that dialogue at the time of the Rushdie affair if more Muslims had stood up and say it is wrong to threaten somebody's life because of what they wrote, and we completely separate ourselves from that? Do you think that message got through very well?
No, because the alternative voice is seldom heard. If you're going to portray Muslims as a monolithic entity, and the alternative voices are almost always...
Women would be perhaps domineering.
They don't have terribly much of a life. They're obviously quite controlled by the men.
They have got a low status. I don't think it's fair.
Probably have to wear the dark robing, the gowns or something.
Have to walk around with their face covered.
I think they're very much seen as second-class citizens. I think it's out of order. I mean, they're not allowed to show their skin and that.
They're there to do their husband's bidding. I think women definitely take an inferior position.
The fact is, in a country like Afghanistan, women can't go out to work, they can't get educated, sometimes they can't get medical treatment, they can be severely punished if they appear in public with anything other than a huge tent all over them. It is desperately restricted.
Afghanistan is not the Muslim world. The fact is that in a country like Malaysia, women are very highly educated. They are in politics. They're the leading lights of industry, and so on and so forth. So you have a diametrically opposite example in Malaysia. It's the context, I think, that is very, very important. And in representation, context, I think, is the actual key. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
In the case when Jemima Goldsmith married Imran Khan.
What have we got here then? This is Jemima. Are you quite sure you know what you're getting yourself into? This is an open letter from Annabelle Hasseltine.
You will be expected to live in the women's quarter, to eat with the women and dress as they do. In fact, it turns out that Jemima Khan looks quite graceful and dignified in shalwar kameez, much prettier than she ever looked in whatever Annabelle Hasseltine would like to see her in.
Maybe when you've got wealth and privilege, you can get away with wearing anything. But for one working mum in Glasgow, wearing a Muslim headscarf or hijab may well have cost her the ideal job.
The job that I was going for was a market research interviewer, and I wanted to do it. Well, I wanted to do it because I had a lot of experience in that field, and it really fitted in well with my family life, and I knew it was a job that I would have enjoyed very much. I felt that the interview was going really well. To tell you the truth, this is the first interview that I personally felt that, you know, I had sold myself so brilliantly, because it was all these compliments that she kept. It was like, you know, she was just throwing at me, and I thought, I know this job's mine, you know, the way she was talking. Then she went on to say, this headscarf that you've got on, do you wear this all the time, or have you just worn it for the interview? And I said, no, I wear it all the time. And it was from here, the interview just changed dramatically. Just say, you know, obviously if I was employed, I was going to be representing their company, and obviously, you know, they had proper standards as to what way you should be dressing and things like that. And she said, you know, that this company would not allow wearing the hijab. She said I didn't meet the dress code of the company. That's what her words were. On the way back home, I felt, I couldn't believe, I just couldn't believe what she had said. I could hear my heart pounding so loud in my ears.
With her brother's encouragement, Shahida took her complaint to the Community Relations Council, who successfully took up her case.
Well, the company have written me a letter. The first thing that they've raised is an apology, as what I had requested at the beginning. The second thing they've done is that they've implemented their training as to their interview techniques and things like that. And the third thing is the compensation. They've actually compensated me as well. My confidence as for applying for jobs, I feel that it's not the way I used to feel before. Even like for people when they used to ask me about the hijab, I used to feel quite proud in talking about it and telling them why I wore it and things like that. Whereas now I just feel that this is always going to stand out. And is there any point in going for an interview now? And I do feel that they have, broken my confidence in applying for other jobs.
Given all this fuss over the hijab, does wearing a headscarf affect how most people perceive Muslim women? Are they less likely to intervene to help a woman in distress who's wearing a headscarf? Failure to intervene isn't breaking the law, but is it morally wrong to do nothing? Using actors, we faked incidents of abuse in the seaside town of Southend and secretly filmed people's responses. It's important to remember in all the following sequences that passers-by may not intervene for a variety of reasons. They may misunderstand what they're seeing or hearing, or they may not even have noticed it. And they may be concerned about their personal safety. It doesn't follow that they're in any way prejudiced or acting negligently or unlawfully.
Yeah, nice tea towel. Like the tea towel, darling. Very nice. Where'd you get that? Top fashion or what?
I've got one at home that matches that, yeah?
Look at it.
The bin liner. Anyway.
Yeah.
Right. What's she hiding?
Look at those shoes she's got on.
One woman does step in.
On the floor and start praying, are we? Yeah, give it all of that.
Win the bingo, yeah?
Oh, we're only just having a laugh. God. Oh, yeah. Really good box.
It's wicked. She looked vulnerable. She just looked vulnerable, and it wasn't about blacks, it wasn't about Indians, it was about her and the way she dressed.
Hey, tea towel head.
She's glad.
Ooh, I like that. That's very nice tea towel. Where'd you get that from? There's a nice little shop.
We test the situation again. This time the abuse carries on for several minutes without interruption.
Definitely guns, isn't it? You're going around shooting people all day, popping them off.
You fancy a bacon sandwich?
No, that is banging to follow. I feel so sorry for you, like I tell you. So sorry. That
like
get up you've got on.
Rushdie, read these boots.
Salman Rushdie, what is it? The Satanic Mercies. I'll tell
Eventually the abusers just give up and go.
Poetry emotion, that book, isn't it? Poetry emotion.
I assume someone was being harassed for begging. It's not any of my business, really, no. Just in the British public, the sort of people who stand back and accept things as they are. They accept that they're told what to do and when to do it. But I'd intervene if it got violent.
Ooh, nice tea towel, darling.
Glamorous, isn't you?
There's a hand grenades, isn't it?
On the next occasion, it again looks as if the abusers will be allowed to carry on.
Bloody terrorists they are.
Bacon sandwich, love.
Definitely no pork sandwich, isn't it? Have a drink with us, well, right, really.
But this time, someone finally does intervene.
A couple of scotches.
Oh, leave her alone.
What?
What? You know what I mean? I'm just
I mean, look at the way she's dressed. Look at it, she's so different. I mean, come on.
Leave her alone. This is our country, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, she doesn't have to go around looking like that.
Yeah,
it looked like someone was getting a bit of abuse. Racist, xenophobic, but ultimately true. I don't know what they were saying. Should they be here?
I actually thought that people were abusing somebody who was different to them. I intervened because I always think if you can speak up for other people who are experiencing that kind of harassment, it's important.
And further exercises also result in intervention.
Good offer. Don't you read his stuff? I tell you, he's brilliant.
Go, you magic car.
Yeah, she's... Well, look at her.
I ain't talking to you.
Go away. Leave her alone.
Excuse me. I'm speaking to her, all right?
Leave her alone.
Listen.
At the end of the filming, the actors have mixed feelings about what they've seen.
I did find that there should have been more attention. Like we really had to, you know, pull it out of people, really abuse the actresses.
A lot of people, first of all, just said, you know, oh, leave them alone, you're bullies, this sort of thing. But a couple of people did get quite aggressive at one point.
The First Lady that intervened was very upset herself, and that felt, from personally, obviously, that felt as if very good. You know, those people were actually not prepared to stand there and listen to this abuse.
Are we in danger of exaggerating the problem of Islamophobia?
Well, no, because we are very open society, because we are democratic society, because we are tolerant society, even a small percentage of racism or Islamophobia should not be acceptable.
Perhaps the ultimate test of tolerance is how the public would react if a member of their family converted to Islam. And that was the next question in our nationwide survey.
A member of my family came home and said they'd like to convert to Islam. I would say, great, I'd like to find out a bit about it first.
I wouldn't mind, because I just think everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
First of all, I would find out a lot more about Islam itself.
I would feel very apprehensive.
Really wouldn't affect me, to be honest.
It's just an apprehension that they are moving into a different, complete sort of type of sect.
I wouldn't like to see them having to be in Purdah.
I don't think in society that people have such a broad perspective on religion at all.
I know the whole society today integrates. It's a small world.
They close their minds off to something they don't understand.
It turned out that 40% of people said they'd be supportive if a member of their family converted to Islam, and a further 30% wouldn't be considered.
So my concept of Islam was incredibly limited, and I actually didn't give it any thought.
Prior to Rachel undergoing her conversion, I had the impression, being fed by the media, I hasten to add, and by perhaps populist films, that most Muslims were kind of hell-bent on the destruction of Western civilization, were all kind of extremist fundamentalists.
I first became exposed to Islam when I first came to university. Back at home in my village there really aren't any Muslims at all. When I came to Leeds, obviously there was quite a few, and I was very curious. I think at the end of the day I basically just wanted answers as to why we were here, what was our purpose. I was just curious, you know, it's a new ways of thinking of things.
I think my reactions were shock, horror, disbelief. Was it a fad of Rachel's? Was she going to get over it? What will our friends think about it? I sent her emails saying that this has been a great blow and a great shock to the family, Rachel. How are we going to cope with it? What have we done wrong? Why have you rejected our ideals, our religion, our dress code, our personal code, all out the window? Why? What have we done that's so wrong?
I just emailed him back and I said, it's not like I've come home and said I'm gay or I'm taking drugs or anything like that. And I'm not going to do that either. I'm not going to come home and say these things.
When she started to cover herself from head to toe in reams of cloth and wouldn't have a hair showing, and basically it seemed to me she didn't care what she looked like.
If I was to take the hijab off tomorrow and walk out in the street with my hair loose, my mother would be dancing in the street. She'd be very happy because she doesn't want me to hide. She feels like, I guess she feels I'm hiding behind it, but I'm not. I actually feel more secure. I feel that less people are staring at me for the wrong reasons.
My main thought process was this: do we rip the family apart for the sake of religious dogma, or do we concentrate on our family and keep the whole aspect of family life together. We formed the point of view that the best line of action was to take was that we loved our daughter so much that we were prepared to not lose her and to accept her standpoint and her religious beliefs.
When we go and see Rachel at university, it does seem strange. They know her as Latifa. They don't know her as Rachel. I will call her Rachel.
I haven't actually changed my name. I've just added to it. I felt I needed to because Rachel, at the end of the day, was my Christian name. It was a name that was given to me on the day that I was christened. I'm not a Christian anymore.
But while her family has come round, it's been a different story with their wider social circle.
Local friends were very much against the situation on a covert basis rather than an overt basis, giving grimaces, frowns, a kind of vibe of disbelief. Colleagues, we are, I believe, locally respected people. They were very polite, but they were polite for our benefit and not for the benefit of Rachel.
There was a time where we went out with a friend, a friend who unfortunately I won't class as a friend now. And she was certainly plied with alcohol, even though Rachel, as a Muslim, of course, does not drink, and she will not drink. And she asked for a Coke, and it had something else in it. Definitely has something else in it.
Things that have bothered me have been reaction of people that I do care about if they have been against it. There was a family event a while back where I did feel that I was snubbed. I felt that my family was neglected as well because of me and what I had done.
Frankly, this has now given me a very great insight into how minorities must feel. I've never been a minority. I've always been a majority, and to be on the other side of the fence has been a very cursory experience for me.
I feel that they have been through a lot. I mean, it's a huge shock for them to have a daughter who's decided to change to a religion that they would see as so totally different to their own, even though it isn't, and they do understand that now.
When Rachel did change and reject a lot of what we stood for, why was it our fault? Was it our fault? Well, now I can say no, it's not, because we did do our best. We're only human beings. And now we actually have a very forthright, intelligent, independent young lady.
But if the unexpected arrival of Islam in a family can cause problems, what about its arrival in a non-Muslim neighborhood? When a group of Muslims decided to set up an Islamic center in this quiet part of East London, it triggered a chain of events that led to arson and street violence. How could a building designed for prayer and education become the focus of such bitter divisions between Muslims and their neighbors?
We have no other centre in the 6-mile radius from here to Loughton. So this is the only facility that is provided to the Muslim families in the area, which are more than 600 families.
I think it was very conveniently located, the best accessible place in the area.
Well, we first discovered about the problems brewing at the centre when I think some of the residents actually called in. This must have been about October '99, which is shortly after I started working in the area. The residents' complaint was that a lot of the users of the centre would come along, usually on a Friday lunchtime, and they would be parking their cars. Some of them in the car parks, the council car parks. Others would be parking them down the residents' residents-only parking bays, or on the pavements even.
I don't think a sensible practicing Muslim will have the intention of creating noise or parking where he shouldn't be, or even disturbing the peace in the neighborhood. Because when people come to this place, they don't leave it drunk or drugged. They don't leave with too much noise or disturbance, because they are here to worship.
There's none worthy of worship.
There's none worthy of worship.
Except Allah.
Except Allah.
I think there is also another economic problem. Some people fear that the value of their property might be devalued if different class of people will move into the area.
What do you think of the building?
I don't want it.
What's the problem?
Well, it's going to be a mosque. We didn't want a mosque here. No one was asked about it.
These people do not live here. They're just coming in from outside and moving in. They don't live here.
If this area was primarily primarily Muslim, I would have absolutely no objection.
They just move in, upset the community that's here, and then just go home in the evening. So, like, that's not a community. They're not part of the community, are they?
And the number of occasions that I've nearly knocked a child down or someone down that road where they park, double park, it's very, very dangerous now.
This ain't a Muslim area. There's hardly any Muslims around here. These people are just going to come into the area in their hundreds and hundreds.
Events took a sinister turn in March last year when there was an arson attack on the centre on the night of the festival of Eid. Those responsible have never been found.
You're associated spiritually, physically, emotionally with a place. You've got that attachment, and suddenly you see the place in ashes and you find, oh my God, what's going to happen now? How are we going to overcome this? What are we going to do about it?
Saying they were afraid of further attacks while the building was damaged, the trustees of the centre set about rebuilding without waiting for planning permission. But the centre wasn't restored to its previous condition.
So instead of a couple of shop windows here, then you've got these arches with bricked up recesses.
With bricked up recesses to ensure that we don't get vandalized the way we were, and not another arson attack.
If they respect everything, why haven't they respected the local planning permission?
Well, I would like them to stop. They didn't stop building. When they were told to stop, they didn't have a day off. They carried on building right from start to finish.
In September last year, the residents had a chance to voice their concerns at a council meeting held in a nearby hall. It was an evening no one would forget. The Muslims' numbers appeared to have been swollen by a crowd of young activists.
There was other groups of people outside the hall who were not invited by us, who had no connection with the planning application, and they were making speeches promoting their own causes.
Outside the meeting, after the decision was made to reject that application, there was a large fight, I would have to say.
I didn't know what was happening, but I had been told later on that there was some trouble between some youth and the police, and somebody had been hurt, possibly a policeman.
And there were people arrested afterwards who were armed with, I believe one was armed with a hammer, one was armed with a table leg.
We made it very clear that the centre, nor its users, nor its management was involved in any kind of activity outside Hockey Hall. But obviously it has had an adverse effect by the bad publicity it generated.
There's a great sense of trepidation amongst the residents still. I don't feel they've really got over the fight outside the meeting last year. There is a genuine sense of fear, and whether that's justified, I couldn't really tell you.
Some of them say they've been intimidated by Muslim youths, but clearly they feel threatened as well.
Don't you feel that the people who have been victims of an arson attack, who have every other day stones thrown through the front door when in the old premises, and now being kicked around, the doors being kicked around, are they the victims? Are they not intimidated? Aren't they the ones who are the victims of all this?
So our feelings around here pretty strong about it then?
They are pretty strong, but I will make one thing clear. They are not racial. It is purely to do with our area being people coming to our area that actually don't live here.
If you have a different colour skin now, you seem to have the upper hand all the time, don't you? I mean, if you're a pale skin, you've got no say in the country. If you're a different colour skin, like it's, hello Henry, how are you?
Don't want the whole area taken over, simple as that.
The trustees of the centre recently made an offer to change some of the unauthorised alterations. The council have now accepted their proposals.
Neighbours under Islamic law have certain rights, and a practicing Muslim will never try to violate any of these rights. On the contrary, it is my obligation, my duty to discharge all these rights. Our aim is to live in peace with our neighbours and within this neighbourhood.
But sometimes it's all too easy to rush to judgment. For me, one of the most powerful examples of that came not here in Britain, but in America. I remember being in the BBC newsroom on April the 19th, 1995, when reports started coming in of the worst ever terrorist atrocity in the history of the United States, the Oklahoma City bombing. My horror when I saw that 168 people had been killed was accompanied by surprise at how quickly, with no evidence, speculation arose that a Muslim group might have been behind the attack.
I believe there's a very real possibility that Islamic fundamentalists were involved.
I can tell you that there's increasing indications by law enforcement that this was the work of Islamic extremists.
Well, it certainly bears the hallmark, at least in terms of the modus operandi and past patterns of activity of Islamic extremists in various other countries.
Being an American at that time, you always think, some crazy person from overseas.
I thought maybe it was someone from Iran, perhaps. I never thought it could be anyone over here.
Because it's a federal building, it's some kind of, a foreign type person or something like that.
The first thought that came to my mind would have been a Middle East country from, to respond to, the Desert Storm type of thing.
You're Palestinians and people of those races and stuff.
Maybe Iraq, Saddam Hussein, possibly.
We had to believe it was some international terrorist.
One man in particular paid the price for assumptions that Muslims might have been responsible for the Oklahoma City bombing.
On April 19th, I was fixing to go to Jordan. My family called me a week earlier and told me that my grandfather is getting sick and I should go and see him. I left Oklahoma City at exactly 10:40 that morning. I never knew anything about what happened, of course, until I reached Chicago around 1:30 that day in the afternoon. CNN was reporting the news. I was just shocked. I just left the city, a few hours before. And of course I left my wife and my kids and my friends and house and everything there. And it was only 2 minutes before agents from the custom and the immigration came and asked me to go with them for questioning. The first 2-3 hours were all about how did you get the citizenship, when did you come to the US, just a routine immigration question. Then they told me the FBI want to talk to me too. 2 agents questioned me for at least, I would say, 2 to 3 hours. And the questions were all about the Muslims, the Arab in Oklahoma City. In the beginning, are you a Muslim? Do you pray? Do you go to the mosque? Do you know how many Muslim people live in Oklahoma City? And of course, I told them everything I know. I told them I do pray. And just like most people, we do care about our religion. We do pray and fast and do whatever we're supposed to do.
Eventually, the FBI concluded their questioning and allowed Abraham Ahmad to resume his journey. Having missed his original flight, he was now routed via London. But on arriving in Britain, he was detained yet again, in spite of his protests that he'd already been questioned by the FBI and then let go.
We went to a small room, and the first thing they said, take your clothes off. And I was strip searched at that moment, even my underwear. And this is, as a Muslim, of course, this is this is just totally humiliation, because as a Muslim, you're not supposed to be naked in front of anybody.
Ahmad was marched to a plane in handcuffs and flown back to Washington. By the time of his arrival, the media had been tipped off that a man of Middle Eastern origin had been detained in connection with the bombing. But the authorities sped Ahmad away, out of sight of the cameras.
They put me in kind of a darkened van, and before they put me inside the van, they read my rights. And they came and said, you have the right to remain silent, anything you do, or, you know, things they do, and that was the first time they read me my rights. And at that moment, that's when I really freaked out, and I thought, this is it. They are going to frame me for the Oklahoma City bombing.
That evening, they showed his house, and I looked at the address. I said, no, this couldn't be happening. And the person who doesn't know Abraham Ahmad will look at him and say, that's it. They caught the guy. He's the guilty one. His friends and people who knows him were at shock. This couldn't be happening. You know, of course he didn't do it.
When it comes to remember what happened to my wife and my kids, it kind of make your blood boil. After the name and the address being leaked to the media and to the public, now you have people, angry people, who are throwing trash in front of your house, and here you have people shouting, you know, insanity, and the media, of course, from all over the world, and also you get 2-3 helicopters, you know, in the top of the house, and you get 3 years old and 6 years old girls inside the house, and FBI agents questioning my wife.
Authorities on a traffic violation about 60 miles from Oklahoma City on Wednesday morning.
And when it comes out that it was an American that did it, you know, made it, I guess, the reaction even worse.
Was a shock that it was a U.S. citizen. Doesn't seem to be in our nature to do terrorist acts. It's always somebody else does it to us. You know, it's happening in your own country by your own people.
And still hard to believe that it was an American.
No longer comfortable in America, Abraham Ahmad now lives and works with his family in the United Arab Emirates.
For our kids, we don't want them to pay the price of ignorance. Some people in the United States do not understand Islam, and they think because someone bombed something somewhere, they think this is Islam, and all Muslims like to do these things. Do I really miss the United States? I certainly. I love to go back, and one of these days, you know, I have to go back, and definitely it's not going to be the same city, but I do want to go back.
Abraham Ahmad is still waiting for an apology from the American government. In the wake of the Oklahoma City bombing, Muslim lobbying groups in the United States gained greater focus and are now the most powerful organizations of their kind in the West.
The message we try and give to American Muslims, and it should work for Muslims in the UK, is that positive action brings positive result. We have a number of victories in terms of workplace discrimination. It's pretty accepted now that if somebody is discriminated against in the workplace, we'll be able to resolve it. Well, obviously Washington, D.C. is the seat of power in America, and it's essential that Muslims have a presence here. A politician is going to want to meet with everyone in their district. They don't differentiate, I want to meet with this group and not with that group. Everyone is a potential voter to them, a potential donor to them. We see always is that these movie producers go to the Pentagon and they say, oh yeah, we need your submarine, we need your aircraft carrier, we need all these for backdrops and for props and things like this, and then it ends up in a movie like Executive Decision or True Lies or Rules of Engagement.
If communists were the menace of the 50s and 60s, then Islam must be the menace of the new millennium. That's the way it appears, and we have to fight that every chance we can get.
DC police, arrest Sharon!
DC police, arrest Sharon!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
We're here today to send a message to President Bush that he shouldn't legitimize war criminals like Ariel Sharon. I mean, Sharon has been, in his past life, he's been brutal and bloody, and in his current policies, he's brutal and bloody, and you shouldn't legitimize a guy like that with a meeting at the White House. Our executive director is taking part in peaceful civil disobedience today. He'll cross the street to a prohibited area where you're not allowed to protest. They'll sit down and they'll be arrested. And this is a standard practice in America to show people the seriousness of your convictions. You let the police know ahead of time what you're going to do so that there's no mishaps or misinformation, and so everybody's informed about what's going to happen, and then you go through a certain routine. I mean, we ask Muslims to do things here in America that they wouldn't do anywhere in the world. I think for the British Muslims, I would tell them, be united, don't divide along sectarian lines, don't divide along ethnic and national lines. That's key in this kind of process. You need a united voice, or as united as it can be. You need to motivate the grassroots. You need to show people that positive action can bring positive result.